Wrestling is probably the most unique combat sport out of the bunch because you are competing so often, and that has implications on the way you need to train compared to other combat sports. So I'm going to take you through how you can plan and structure your in-season strength training for wrestling performance. But first, we need to cover the importance of strength in wrestling. If you go back to my off-season wrestling training video, there I detail all the research comparing elite and sub-elite wrestlers. We see that elite wrestlers are far stronger than their sub-elite or amateur counterparts, meaning it is a quality that is likely to differentiate high-level wrestlers from lower-level wrestlers. Now, in a recent podcast I did with Zach Evanish, who trains a lot of wrestlers over the past decade, he also believes heavily in consistent strength training through all age groups. So I'm going to run through why strength training is so important to the sport of wrestling. In general terms, obviously you can reduce the risk of injury. Being stronger typically means a reduction in injury risk and overuse injury. You're able to train harder. Stronger individuals are able to handle higher and heavier training loads and even handle spikes in training loads. For example, if you have a coach that suddenly puts you through a couple of 3-hour grueling sessions that week, and you're typically only training an hour during those sessions, that spike in training load, you will be able to handle better. And again, reduce your risk of injury from that spike in training load. Also gives you a mental edge. Feeling big and strong gives you that confidence when you're heading into the mats. Now, the worst thing you can do in season in any sport, including wrestling, is just to not strength train at all. Zach Evanish on the podcast talked about how a lot of parents will pull their kids out of strength training because they're doing so much other stuff at the same time. Do not do that. Your strength and your power will diminish so quickly. Your recovery will diminish quickly. By the end of the season, you lost any of the strength you had. You again, increasing your risk of injury again. You're just setting yourself up for failure. There are ways to do strength training in season so you can maintain or even improve strength and power while still wrestling consistently. Which leads me to why you can't train like you do in the off season. And it's one of the reasons I think parents or even athletes pull themselves away from the gym while they're in congested periods of wrestling training. And they think there's only one way to train. The off season, you might be hitting the gym 3-4 times a week. You might be doing a lot of volume, packing on mass, developing strength that way. And they think that is the way you need to also train in season, and they think it's too much, so they pull back. But that's not how it works. In season, you're going to train a little differently. You're going to reduce the volume. The intensity will be increased. You're going to perform more power style movements. And I'll run through the exercise selection in a second, but there's a reason you can't train that off-season volume in season. You're wrestling more often, you're competing, you're training. You cannot handle 4 days a week at the gym. It's just going to ruin your competition performance. Everything is geared towards the competition day. And in wrestling, hey, you might have more than one competition day in a week, but you can still strength train in those periods. It's just being smart on how you structure it. So before I get into week structures and how you can kind of plan it in a week, we need to look into a little bit of exercise selection, because you cannot go into the gym on a typical bodybuilding split and start doing curls, triceps, lateral raises, shoulders, calf, whatever it is, wasting your time when you only have a short period to train. Typically in season, you might only be doing 45-minute sessions twice a week or even once a week, depending on how often you're competing. So you need to be doing exercises that are going to cover a wide range of qualities, a wide range of muscles, and not just isolating them. So here's some of my favorites for wrestling in particular. Huge fan of the Olympic lifts for grappling-based martial arts. If you're a striker, I'm not too fond of them. But for wrestling, hell yeah. You're having to move heavy loads quickly, which is wrestling essentially. You're moving other human beings quickly. So power cleans, power snatches would be the main variations. I don't believe you need to do the full lift. So the classical clean or the classical snatch, you don't need to get into that position. It's more technical. The powers are also faster. So I like those. You can do them from the hang position. You can do them from the blocks. And even if you don't want to do the catch phase because of mobility reasons or technical reasons, you can do the derivatives. So that can be clean high pulls. You can do snatch high pulls, muscle snatches I'm very fond of, and even just clean and snatch pulls. Personally, I use the Olympic weightlifting variations, specifically the clean pull and the snatch pull, as replacements for the deadlift. And I'll explain why in a bit. Carries, this will be part of closer to your more, I guess, specific wrestling training. So sandbag, bear hug carries, farmer's walks, suitcase carries, Zercher carries, all of those are going to develop that awkward strength and hit some of those postures and positions that you're not going to get from traditional weight training. So even if you just did a very abbreviated program of, say, an Olympic lift and then a carry, that would be an awesome in-season program right there, just having those 2 exercises in a session. Then you have throws for developing a more explosive ability. Again, nice thing with throws, with different medicine balls, you can do heavier and lighter throws depending on what you want to do. With wrestling, I lean more towards the heavier throws. So looking at kind of 4 or 5 kilo medicine balls plus, which would be like 8 to 10 pound plus medicine balls. So things like scoop tosses, forward scoop tosses, push press throws, chest passes, all those various throws. Jumps, of course, that includes some plyometrics. You don't have to go crazy on the plyometrics within wrestling. You don't really have that quick ground contact, but you're still getting the adaptations from those plyometrics that you want for the muscle architecture and the tendon. I touched on those in the plyometric video a few weeks back. You can check that out as well. But various jumps, including loaded jumps, so barbell or trap bar jumps are great options. They're also great replacements for the Olympic lifts if you don't want to do the Olympic lifts. Then obviously your heavy compound lifts, squat, bench, push presses, pull-ups, all your usual rows, etc. Now, I typically don't include the deadlift in here. I like to replace the deadlift with those Olympic weightlifting variations like the snatch and clean pull. One, you're still doing a pulling pattern, which is perfectly good. The deadlift can beat you up pretty good, especially if you're wrestling, let's just say a Saturday to Saturday competition format. If you're deadlifting heavy during the week, it's going to take you at least a day to recover, and you've still got technical training and everything else on top of it. But you can do something like a clean pull or snatch pull that's lighter, that's still going to give you the benefits, plus it's going to give you the extension at the top like you would potentially if you're performing some kind of takedown throw. The benefits of the Olympic weightlifting derivative far exceeds using a heavy barbell deadlift. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't deadlift at all, you can't deadlift, etc. If you enjoy doing it, you feel like you can recover well from it, it's all good. Keep doing it. If you married to the deadlift regardless, maybe you can reduce the loading, you can pull for speed, you can use bands for accommodating resistance. Those are all changes you can make to make the deadlift a better option, in my opinion, than trying to do heavy deadlifts all the time. So with the exercise selection out of the way, let me show you some example training splits that you can do in season. And the choice is going to be up to you with how you do that. In my experience, these are the only 2 training splits that you should consider with your in-season wrestling strength training. That is either an upper-lower split or a strength and power split. And I'll explain these in a little more detail, and then I'll give you some examples of these after this. But a upper-lower, or it will actually be a lower-upper split. So you'll do all lower body strength power exercises on one day, and then all upper body on a second day. So typically, if you're doing a Saturday to Saturday competition schedule, you would do something like your lower body strength power on Tuesday, and you do your upper body strength power on Thursday. Now, the pros of this, you save one half of your body so you don't get so fatigued for training. So for example, if I'm doing lower body on Tuesday, my upper body's fresh. If I do upper body on Thursday, my lower body's fresh. And it gives your lower body more time to recover before the next competition, and the upper body more time after competition, etc. You can switch those around depending on how you feel when you do them. Now, the downsides of doing a split like this is, one, you concentrate all the volume into half your body on that day. So potentially, depending on what you're doing, it could be quite fatiguing on the lower body and the upper body respectively. Secondly, if you miss a day, then you miss half of your body essentially in training. So if you're only able to train Tuesday, you only got your lower body working, you didn't get any upper body working. So bear that in mind if you're going to go down that road. The strength power split is a nice one because it's 2 full body days. So the benefits there of having 2 full body days is the opposite of what I mentioned with the upper lower split. So if you miss a day, you've still managed to train the full body. The downsides of a full body split is the full body is getting hit on both days. So potentially it can be more fatiguing for the whole body going to wrestling training. However, you're not getting the same volume for upper and lower body as you would with the upper lower split. So that's an advantage. Now, a strength power split would look like a more strength focused day on Tuesday and then a more power focused day on Thursday. So you're going your heavier lifting, maybe some kind of power work in the beginning, but heavier lifting on that day. So it might be your heavy squats, might be your heavy benches, rows, pull-ups, all that kind of stuff on this day. And then on your power day, you might be doing your throws, your jumps, your Olympic lifts, etc. So that's how you can split that as well. I'm fond of both. Typically within wrestling strength training, I'd probably lean more towards the strength and power split, but I do enjoy the lower upper split. I think even as, I guess if you're an older athlete as well, I tend to find the lower upper works a little better because you kind of have a little more rest between the 2 segments there, but either works. So that's going to be up to you, but I'll give you some examples of both splits. So this is just an example of a lower upper split. Again, it doesn't have to be exactly like this. This is just one way of doing it. Here I've added some complexes, so it makes it a little quicker to get through the session, have a potentiation effect on your lighter exercises. Again, you can also do this fast or slow, so having all your faster movements first going to your heavy compounds. But in season, this tends to work pretty well. So you can start with, you can even do some throws as part of your warm-up, so you're getting a little extra in, then forming some kind of Olympic lift. Could be any of the variations I mentioned in the previous clip. Some kind of squat variation, front squat, back squat, whatever you want to do. Superset it with some kind of jump variation, box jump, loaded jump, anything there. Then either a single leg variation, single leg squat, or deadlift kind of thing, or some kind of hip hinge. I like back extension there. And then you can finish with a carry, and that would be your strength day. In terms of volume, you might be doing 3 sets of the Olympic lift. You might be doing 3 sets here of the squat and jump variation. It could even be 4, depending. You probably cycle that. You're going to do 2 to 3 sets here, and then probably only 2 sets of the carry. Pretty quick. You can get that done in 50 minutes or less. The upper body day, you're still going to have some full body options in there. So you've got push, press, power jerk, some kind of overhead variation that involves your legs, then some kind of throw paired with that. Could be push, press, throw, scoop tosses, etc. An upper body pull and push superset. Finish with an upper body pull again if you need it, and some kind of isolation exercise. Again, on the upper body day, you can go fast or slow there. And obviously you can add and remove what you need there, but that just gives you a general guideline. But now I'm going to show you the strength and power split that you could use for your training week. And it won't involve complexes because I'm not going to have too many power exercises on the strength day and vice versa. So here's an example of a strength and power split. Again, you might do this Tuesday, you might do that Thursday. You can see there's a stark difference in the exercise selection and the volume just based on the number of exercises. So for the strength day, I did include a power exercise to begin with. I feel like when you do something that is explosive in the beginning, it just helps set up the rest of the session. You don't have to do it. You can kind of get rid of the heavy throw and put it over there. That's totally cool. But starting with the heavy throw, some kind of full body toss option. Then you have a squat variation, could be anything you want in there. An upper body push variation, done for strength, bench press, overhead press, incline, whatever. Upper body pull variation, some kind of pull-up row. A single leg variation optional, just a couple of sets. You can do there. I'll keep it more remedial. So something like lateral lunges, something that you don't usually get within training. So lateral lunges, 3-point lunges, etc. Just so you're getting different force vectors to be scientific. And then carry there to finish. Then on the power side, you're literally just doing a low volume, light exercises, but you're going for speed. So you're going to do some kind of jump variation at the beginning, obviously after you warm up. Some kind of throw variation. Again, you don't have to just do one jump. You could do 2 different jump variations. You could do 1 or 2 different throw variations if you wanted. Then some kind of moderately loaded Olympic lift. This could be, hang power, clean, snatch, high pull, etc. Then some kind of explosive upper body or core lift. So that could be like a landmine rotation. It could be a rotational medicine ball throw. It could be an explosive incline push-up just to finish off there. And that will be the strength and then the power day. So as you can see, a power day like that isn't going to fatigue you like a strength day would. So you could even do this before a wrestling session if that was how your schedule was done. I would not do this after wrestling. You would have to do it before. The strength day, same thing. Ideally, you're not doing it after a wrestling practice, but ideally you kind of do this in the morning, or you're going to do it on a separate day completely, depending on how your schedule is run. So that's just an example there that you can run with. And let me just show you how that looks in a training week. So this is how I see a week laid out. Now, your schedule is probably going to look very different. So I've kind of just given some general guidelines along this. Obviously, your wrestling practices, etc., are going to fit where they fit, and you have to fit around that with your life schedule on top of it. So this is more like a best case scenario. So let's just say competition, you wrestled on Saturday, Sunday, completely off. Don't have to do anything. If you want to do some external recovery means like ice baths, sauna, swim, whatever, you can do that. It's not mandatory, but if it makes you feel good, do that on Sunday. Don't do any other training you don't really need to do. Monday is your lighter technical session. Obviously, you don't have control of what's happening in practice, but in terms of your extra strength conditioning, just some low intensity aerobic work is completely fine to do here. It can help facilitate just some of that movement. You can also do some like mobility circuits is another good option you can do here. If you are undersized, some kind of low volume hypertrophy style training, so it might be just some dumbbell work, some isolation exercise work, that can work well here too. Not completely mandatory, but if you need to, that can be done. Tuesday is your big day. This is like your biggest day of the week. So you Ideally, you're going to do your heavy strength session or your lower body strength power session, and it's probably going to be your hardest technical training. Ideally, yes, if you had the time, you'd do your technical training in the morning, and then in the evening, you would do your gym training. You can also do it vice versa, not ideal, but you got to do what you got to do. Wednesday, I've just made this the gray zone. Kind of depends. Do you have training then? Do you not? Typically, I like to see Wednesday as a day off, or if you need a top up on conditioning, you might do some lower intensity conditioning or more interval-based conditioning here that can be done. If you also needed a higher intensity conditioning top up, you'll probably add it at the end of the gym session here on Tuesday or at the end of the technical session here on Tuesday. For example, you might do your low intensity conditioning here, and then you might do your sprint interval style stuff here on Tuesday if you needed it. So gray zone. Thursday, this will be your power day or your upper body strength power day. So that will be your gym 2 and your moderately intensity technical training. If you can, this can be done directly before your wrestling training. So you just have that one session that day, which is really nice. And then Friday, depends what you have on that day. If you have a wrestling technical session that's light, maybe going through the motions there, that's cool. You can actually do some extra power work there too. So even just throwing a medicine ball here is a good option if you have that option. If not, just a light technical wrestling session and you're good to go to recover for Saturday again. But that is more of a best case scenario. Obviously, it depends on, studies, work, family, your actual wrestling schedule, what's happening in your wrestling training, etc. So you're just gonna have to play around with how the schedule fits within your training. But go down in the description, there's a link to the Sweet Science of Fighting Underground, has all the wrestling programs in there. So there's the off-season wrestling program. I will make the in-season wrestling program to go with this video in there for you as well. But comment below if this was helpful, if you want to see more videos like this. If there's a specific training schedule that you have that you're struggling to fit your strength conditioning around, if you present me that, then I can just chuck it up here and I can run through that for you on the YouTube channel. So what is there to lose?